Mr. Paolini, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
I had, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
just Mr. Paolini, just so you know, there will be a light at the end of this tunnel.
Thank you.
I'm not referring to Ms. Newman, it's just the process. Okay, Ms. Newman, go ahead.
Thank you. I only have a few more questions, Mr. Paolini. Can you tell me what activities are involved with the removal of the existing taxiways?
What existed, that has not been defined yet, but the intent would be to remove the asphalt, the subgrade base material, and then replace it with soil to return it to its natural habitat.
And what's involved with constructing a new taxiway?
Essentially the reverse of that, building a base, and are you talking about how much detail do you want, as far as the design process?
No, that's okay. Let's just skip that question, actually. When did the port begin preparation of the current draft HCP?
That was long before me, but I believe it was approximately 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay. And when do you anticipate that the HCP will be completed?
Unfortunately, I would be speculating. We don't have a finite timeline at this stage.
Okay. One last question. It's just a simple one. You mentioned that the Appendix 4-1 would not be adopted as part of the plan, but it will be when the port adopts the final master plan update, the appendices will be adopted along with that, right? I mean, they'll be attached to it formally, correct?
Some of them will be, like I think the comments appendix will, but the commercial feasibility study will not be.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Pierce Wright, Mr. Aneker, I had some questions. Would you rather I wait till you do your redirect?
I can start with, this is Chris Pierce Wright. I'm happy to do redirect and let you ask your questions at the end. Maybe you'll have some of them answered. Otherwise, I'm happy to wait.
Why don't you go ahead then, and you may cover some of my questions.
Okay. Chris, just a few questions. Earlier, you were asked about the preferred alternative and the alternatives analysis in Chapter 4 of the master plan update. Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes.
What was the purpose of the port undergoing alternatives analysis in Chapter 4?
The intent of the analysis process is to analyze different runway and taxiway configurations to meet current FAA design and safety standards. Going through an analysis process of looking at the pros and cons of each of those alternatives, and then essentially combining different elements of those alternatives to produce a preferred alternative, which is then presented in the airport layout plan to the FAA for approval.
Okay. And that FAA approval includes the elements of the preferred alternative that I was asking you about earlier. Is that accurate?
Correct, yes.
And that's the runways, taxiways, and development areas?
Correct.
Before the FAA approves the preferred alternative and airport layout plan, can the preferred alternative be implemented by the port in any way?
No.
Kind of another set of questions related to the master plan updates, or I should say the feasibility study under Appendix 4-1. I'm going to share that appendix so we can look at the same thing. Let me know when you can see that.
I can see it, yes.
And so I've scrolled down to page 51 of the PDF, page 28. I don't know if it's the second 28 of the document, shows figure 4-4. And you were testifying earlier, I believe, about vertiports on the right side of the image. What are those?
So those are kind of like landing pads, using just common terminology for aircraft that don't actually exist other than as prototypes right now. One of the things that the feasibility study tried to do was kind of think, how might we address emerging technologies in the aviation industry? And so those vertiports are to support, potentially support, again, we don't know enough to do that yet, but to potentially support electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. But I think it's important to note that those are not in service yet.
Those not in service, meaning the aircraft themselves.
Correct. There's companies that are working on prototypes and working with the FAA going through the certification process, but those are not in the market.
And as with everything else in figure 4-4, are the vertiports shown on that figure included in the airport layout plan?
No, they are not.
Before you installed, you being the airport, constructed those vertiports, would they need to be added to the airport layout plan?
Yes, they would need to be added to the airport layout plan, receive FAA approval, and then the project themselves would need to receive FAA approval.
I do not have any more questions.
I have some questions, if you would bear with me, and I'm going to ask them at the risk of sounding pretty ill-informed. So, and they're random. I'm going through my marginal notes. And I'm not. This first one is a serious question. When you said you had experience in Long Beach, were you referring to Long Beach, Washington, or Long Beach, California?
Long Beach, California.
I assume that, but I just want to clarify. Thank you. The documents you testified about in your testimony talked about previous commercial air activity, I think from the baseline of 2000, if my memory of one of the figures is correct. Is that correct? And the last commercial activity was 2004.
Correct. I believe there were, if I remember, if my understanding is correct, there was 3 different times that commercial service was available at the airport. The most recent ended in 2004.
So you have some awareness that there was commercial activity, including, I think, a regional airline previous to 2000 and 2004.
Correct. I think the most recent airline was Big Sky Airlines or Airways, if I remember.
I'm not sure the relevance, but I'm just wondering. I wanted to understand whether the history of the use of that airport did include previous commercial activity, commercial aviation activity. Let me look through my notes. Sorry. This may sound like a naive question. I don't want to startle everyone. Under the FAA regulations and circulars, is there a requirement that a study like the alternative study here necessarily has to have a preferred alternative?
That is the intent of that process. Part of the master planning process is to come up with a strategy for meeting current FAA design and safety standards and to account for the aviation forecast. So that alternatives process, that analysis, is specifically to result in coming up with a preferred alternative that is then presented in the ALP to the FAA for approval.
Okay, that's helpful to me. And I believe this may have been covered in your direct with Mr. Pierce Wright, but I just wanted to be clear on this. If after approval of a preferred alternative by the Federal Aviation Agency, an airport authority wished to proceed at least in one or other or more respects with one of the non-preferred alternatives, would that require FAA, with development of an element of the non-preferred alternatives, would that require FAA approval?
Yes, you would have to first update the airport layout plan, and that would be which would require FAA approval.
Okay. Bear with me here.
And just to clarify that, and then the project itself would also go through an FAA approval process as well.
Right, I understood your testimony in that. Just have a few more questions, I think. At the end of your this redirect, there was your testimony about the vertiports. And if I'm using the wrong term when I ask you this, please, it's important to define terms. So if you have a different understanding of what my question assumes, then please tell me. But would you say that at this stage, a discussion of location and development in those locations of vertiports could be called speculative?
Absolutely.
And if I have questions about your question about some of the provisions in the environmental checklist, and in cross-examination, you had some questions about the current status of the habitat conservation plan. Are questions about the port's involvement or understanding of either the habitat conservation plan document or the current process with it, are those better directed at someone other than you for the port?
Yeah, I would probably direct those to Shawn Gilbertson. Depending on the question, I might be able to answer, but primarily I would direct to Shawn Gilbertson.
He's more involved in the HCP process than you are, isn't that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I just have a few more questions. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I should ask this, but given your experience before with the Southwest Regional Airport and a different experience with Long Beach, California, am I correct in assuming that the challenges placed in planning and providing alternatives for development for the Olympia Airport present difficulties because of the overlay with identified habitat areas in the airport boundary, within the airport boundaries?
Difficulties in that we need to wait for a habitat conservation plan in order to have a path forward.
I see.
I'm not sure if I.
No, that's a good answer to a complicated question. That, and then let me ask you this. Oh, I may be done. Hold it a moment. I think those are all my questions. Thank you. Do either attorneys have brief follow-up questions after my questions?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Mr. Pierce,
Nothing from me either.
Mr. Paolini, I think you're freed from this process at this point. You don't have to testify further.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Chris.
Is Mr. Gilbertson your next witness?
He is.
You want to call him now? I'm not trying to cut anyone off. I think he's an important witness. Do you have any idea how long this will take?
Maybe about an hour. I would be surprised if we don't finish today.
You think we can get done today?
I do think that.
Oh, okay. Why don't you begin?
Shawn, is your video there?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Mr. Examiner, do you want to swear him in?
Oh, yes, I do. I hope I swore in the previous witness. Mr. Gilbertson, could you raise your right hand, please? Do you affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth in the matter before me today?
Yes, I do.
So for your team, will Mr. Pierce Wright, will you be taking the lead on questioning, or will Mr. Aneker?
This is Chris. Yes, I'll take the lead on questioning Mr. Gilbertson.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Shawn, would you mind stating your name and spelling it for the record?
Yes, it's Shawn Gilbertson, SHAWN, GILBERTSON.
What is your role with the Port of Olympia?
I am the Director of Environmental Planning and Programs.
How long have you had that role?
It'll be 2 years in September.
Can you give us just a general overview of what your job duties include?
Absolutely. In addition to being the SEPA responsible official, I oversee all environmental actions here at the port, including compliance with environmental laws, stewardship initiatives, restoration projects, and conservation as well.
Before your work at the Port of Olympia the last couple years, what roles did you hold?
Immediately preceding the Port of Olympia, I was environmental programs manager at the city in King County, City of Kent, for 15 years, overseeing stormwater compliance, wellhead protection programs, and water source cross-connection control. And that was 15 years. And previous to that, I was at the Washington State Department of Transportation for 5 years as a air quality, noise, and energy planning specialist. And prior to that, I spent 10 years at a private company called Occidental Chemical, where I was a laboratory analyst, analyzing process streams, product quality, and environmental metrics.
What was your involvement in the 2021 Airport Master Plan update?
My involvement was purely from the SEPA standpoint. So I reviewed the Airport Master Plan update along with the SEPA checklist.
Any other documents that you reviewed as part of that process?
Yeah, I looked closely at the Habitat Conservation Plan draft. I looked at, let's see, a lot of the SEPA handbook by the Department of Ecology, a lot of Washington Administrative Code. I'm sure I'm leaving other things out, but mainly it was the Airport Master Plan. City of Tumwater codes, municipal code, as well as, yeah, that covers most of it, I think.
And I think a good place to start would be the Habitat Conservation Plan. Can you just provide a 10,000 foot level? What is, when you refer to the Habitat Conservation Plan, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the Bush Prairie Draft Habitat Conservation Plan, which is a plan that's optional under Section 10 of the Endangered Species Act, which allows proponents of development or other operations to apply for an incidental take permit. So the Habitat Conservation Plan identifies the habitat and the species that may be impacted by any actions, and it proposes mitigation strategies to protect the species.
And stepping kind of further back from that, what are the impacts of protected species listed under the Endangered Species Act on the Olympia Regional Airport?
Essentially, no development can take place there currently, and that's been the case for I'd say at least 10 years. So without an Endangered Species Act violation, there would be no way to do development activities that may impact habitat or the species therein.
And just to confirm, so because of those protections, the Port of Olympia has not undergone any development activity at the Olympia Regional Airport?
That's correct.
What are the species that have been identified that are protected at the airport?
At the airport, it is primarily the Mazama pocket gopher, or the subspecies is the Olympia pocket gopher, the streak-torn lark bird species, and the Oregon vesper sparrow is also included. The Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan also covers the Oregon spotted frog, which has not been identified as the airport is not habitat for the Oregon spotted frog.
In the process of applying for the habitat or creating a habitat conservation plan, what other parties have been involved?
Primarily the City of Tumwater, who we are partnering with to create this programmatic habitat conservation plan, but we're working very closely with United States Fish and Wildlife Service as well. Additionally, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife has been involved on and off in certain discussions throughout the process. And then we have a consultant that is also working with us.
Okay. I'm going to pull up the plan previously marked as Exhibit 54. And you see that?
Yes, I can.
And just for the record, what is this document?
That is the latest working draft of the Bush Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan.
Okay. And there was some testimony earlier that this draft is from February 2023. Is that correct to your knowledge?
That is correct. And
why the lag between today and then?
The primary reason is shortly after this draft came out, U.S. Fish and Wildlife released a recovery plan for the Mazama pocket gopher, and it threw some uncertainty into our strategy that is outlined in this HCP. So it necessitated a lot more back and forth between U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the port and Tumwater. So we had to back up a step or two, make sure that we're integrating the requirements in the recovery plan for the gopher. So we had to go back and reassess certain areas of the habitat conservation plan draft.
Okay. And I'm going to scroll down to PDF page 20. This is page 1-7 of the plan, figure 1-1. And this is a map. Can you explain to us what it's showing?
Yeah, it's pretty much centered on Thurston County, and the shaded area is really the plan area for both impacts and recovery.
Okay. And that is blown up in this next page, which shows several different areas. Trying to get the whole thing into view. This is page 1-8. What is shown here?
In summary, the green area is the area which in which impacts or projects will be allowed under the HCP, and the other area, the darker blue, is an area outside of where impacts need to be accounted for, but where mitigation could take place for impacts within the permit area.
Okay. And can you just identify for the hearing examiner, where is the Olympia Airport?
The Olympia Airport is, if you see the middle I-5 symbol there in the towards the bottom of the green section, it is to the right of that, and you'll see the white label that says Olympia Regional Airport.
And that's within the permit area, or I guess plan area for potential projects.
Correct. Yes, the permit area essentially is the City of Tumwater.
Okay. And to further orient, I'm going to scroll down further. Sure.
The permit area is a large part of the City of Tumwater, but it appears to me also include parts of the City of Olympia. Is that correct? To the northwest?
I do not believe it does include part of Olympia.
I'm wrong. I'm misidentifying a water body. Okay, sorry.
Okay. I'm going to jump down PDF page 62, and this is page 2-23 of the plan, figure 2-7. Can you explain what this figure is showing?
Yes, it shows the different species that are suspected or have been observed in the permit and plan area, and it includes the sparrow, the streaked-horned lark, and the Oregon spotted frog, and the Olympia pocket gopher.
And can you identify the airport on this map?
Yes, it's to the center right, outlined in red, filled with green, and it has a couple of what look like X's in them, kind of, yes. So it is right there in that red outlined area, filled by green.
And the red and green, my understanding is aren't intended to identify the airport. What are they signifying?
The red and green are critical habitat for the pocket gopher, for one, and also locations where observations have been made for one or more of the species. And I can't see the symbology in detail within that.
You're able to read the table?
Yeah, so it mainly is identifying, you can see a couple of large X's there where Oregon vesper sparrows have perhaps been heard or seen in past years. And then the Olympia pocket gopher surveys have been pretty robust. So it's fully populated by the pocket gopher. And then there are also streaked-horned lark locations within the red boundary as well.
Okay. Was there some uncertainty about whether the Oregon vesper sparrow is located at the airport?
There is. It's somewhat anecdotal evidence. People have heard the calls, but have not observed them nesting or foraging on the airport. So to err on the side of caution, we are certainly considering Oregon vesper sparrow on the airport in case it does end up being there.
Okay. So I'd like to start, and the HCP itself starts with a discussion about the pocket gopher. I think I can scroll up to where it's discussed. I'm not going to ask you specifically about this page, but I believe your testimony was that the pocket gopher is on all of the airport property.
That's correct.
Do you know why so many are located at the airport?
The airport is maintained in a state vegetation-wise and relatively free of predators because it's fenced. So the Oregon the Olympia pocket gopher like shorter grass. They like friable soils in which they can dig. So this is kind of historic prairie land type area. So it is conducive to pocket gopher populations.
Okay. Are there any parts of the airport that could be developed without impacting the pocket gopher?
On the airport, no.
The next species, I'm just going to jump down, not ask you specifically about anything on this page, but to page 2-36 is the streaked-horned lark. And what parts of the airport have streaked-horned larks on them?
Their populations are a little more spotty on the airport. I'd say generally they're towards the northern part and in between taxiways and runways. They're not as much on the periphery of the operational area, but they're spread out through the upper half of the airport property, and there has been sightings in other areas throughout the airport proper.
Okay. And then we talked about the Oregon vesper sparrow a little bit. I'm going to jump down again now. Chapter 3 of the HCP addresses covered activities. Are you able to explain in broad strokes how the HCP addresses different types of activities?
Certainly, the HCP requires that any impact to the habitat which is the entire airport, needs to be assessed and then mitigated for either generally by finding other areas to restore and maintain and as pocket gopher habitat. So it is mitigation. So as you develop a certain area, you have to have other mitigation property ready to go as conservation areas.
Okay, and can you explain a little bit more about those potential conservation areas? What are the requirements related to those?
The requirements are that they need to be supported by gopher-friendly soils. Basically, there's an actual, I think, WDFW depiction of where suitable soils are for gopher habitat. So any property that is used as a mitigation offset for any impacts on the airport would need to be on gopher suitable soils. The land would need to be available. Generally, that land would also be prairie land, so not many trees on it. The gophers do not like to be in areas where there are trees. That's generally it. So soils, lack of trees, prairie habitat, and available land to purchase or to put conservation easements on.
You mentioned conservation easements. Would there be an ongoing requirement associated with this alternative land?
Yes, it would be commitment in perpetuity to maintain that conservation property in a manner that sustains gopher populations.
And that alternative property would apply to other species too that were impacted by airport development?
It could, yes.
Right. What's the current status of the HCP?
Current status is that the consultant is furiously working on an updated draft. We have had bi-monthly meetings with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and our consultants to flesh out some details. And we believe that a draft will be circulated for internal review sometime towards the end of this month or early August. So we are getting close to having the next draft. It would undergo internal review and probably a little more editing between the parties and U.S. Fish and Wildlife before the next public review draft would be available.
What are the implications of not receiving approval of the HCP?
Essentially, we wouldn't be able to do any development on the airport without violating the Endangered Species Act.
Does the port intend to violate the Endangered Species Act?
No.
Would it also limit failure to receive the approval of the HCP? Would that also limit development elsewhere in Tumwater?
It would, yes. Certainly in the New Market Industrial Campus and Clean Water Center, and then for areas which Tumwater oversees as well.
Right. In the course of this,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question and answer for me, please? Sorry.
sure. The question was, would failure to receive approval of the HCP limit development in other places in Tumwater, meaning outside of the airport?
Right. Thank you.
You need Shawn to answer again.
I do. I thank you. I mean, I thought it was an important answer, but I missed part of it. Sorry.
And yes, so if the HCP is not approved, then development would be definitely delayed, if not stopped altogether, at a lot of locations throughout the permit area. Some of that depends on whether it's occupied currently by gophers and whether it's in critical habitat or not. But in general, lack of an HCP is halting development on and off the airport.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I understand that during the course of these proceedings, the appellants have raised concerns about the possibility of changes to the Endangered Species Act. Are you familiar with what those concerns are?
I am, yes. I think part of the concern was that habitat was going to be removed as a potential impact. So I think what I've heard is that impacts to habitat would not necessarily indicate impacts to the species, and that has a lot of people concerned.
Is the port changing its strategy based on whatever's underlying those concerns?
No, we are not.
Can you explain some of the reasons for that?
Yeah, we believe that this is destined to be tied up in court for quite some time. It's pretty controversial departure from how the ESA has been carried out previously. So we think that it would be tied up in court. As well, the state has its own Endangered Species Act. So WDFW, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, has also been very involved with this. And we feel that if at the federal level there was an interruption in the way the ESA, the Endangered Species Act, is implemented, the state will step in and continue to require those actions. But that is speculative at this point.
And state law protects the same species that are addressed in the HCP?
Yes, it does.
I want to shift now to the master plan update. And obviously you're familiar with the master plan update. Are you able to provide a summary of it, what in your understanding the master plan update does?
Yes. As I mentioned, I was not involved in drafting or reviewing it. That's done before I was here. But essentially it lays out in different chapters, it lays out existing conditions. It has an aviation forecast. It has facility requirements that need to be met to comply with FAA safety and operational standards. It has an alternatives analysis for airport layout plans, and it has a preferred airport layout plan. And then there's appendices related to public involvement and some forecasting appendices, and then a feasibility study for commercial air service.
Okay. And you reviewed that plan as part of your threshold determination that's under appeal?
I did.
I want to bring up, to begin with, the SEPA checklist in this matter. I will share my screen. Exhibit 3, are you able to see that?
I am.
And I want to touch on with you the concerns that appellants raise. I'm going to start with concerns about noise, and that's addressed here, page 29, PDF page 29, and then scrolling down again, PDF page 30. What was your review with respect to the master plan update and noise?
My review, well, of course, I reviewed the environmental checklist, the SEPA checklist, and the airport master plan to see what was proposed. And there wasn't enough specificity in the plans to necessarily make noise analysis. And the forecast increase of aviation traffic is really just a forecast that is not dependent on the airport master plan. So there's really no changes in use or other specific proposals that I feel would impact noise. If the elements within the airport layout plan, the development areas are pursued and further detail is available about what those entail, then a noise analysis would be completed. And it would require modeling to find out where the 65 decibel noise contour is. And it would also, any development would require compliance with the City of Tumwater noise control code.
Okay. And I understand that a prior noise analysis was completed for the 2013 master plan update. Can you comment on any changes relevant to that analysis that are proposed by the current proposed 2021 master plan update?
I believe that the noise contours that were in the 2013 airport master plan are carried over from an earlier analysis. The analysis I reviewed was done in 2004, and it utilized it utilized aircraft operation numbers from 2004, and then it projected out to 2013. And in projecting out to 2013, the estimated number of aircraft operations were about 113,000 per year. And it still predicted that the 65 decibel day-night level noise contours would remain on the airport proper. I also recognize that the high number for aircraft operations in the current master plan, the 2021, tops out around 84,000, so well below what was modeled in the previous analysis. So my assumption is that the noise contour might actually contract because there'll be fewer predicted aircraft operations.
And to be clear, the 2021 aviation forecast, that's a document that's approved by the FAA, is that right?
Correct.
Is that relevant to what your scope of review is under SEPA?
I believe it is, yes.
A big topic of discussion in this hearing has been the potential for commercial service under the commercial feasibility study, Part 139 study. Does that impact, or is that relevant to what your analysis was about potential noise impacts?
I'd say no, only in so much as that it's identified that significant projects moving forward would have to undergo SEPA and environmental analysis.
Would there be potential for noise impacts from other development on the airport property beyond operations, landings, takeoffs?
There could be. It really depends on what type of facilities are constructed in the identified development areas. There's a wide range of what could be installed there. Even though the zoning says airport industrial or whatever that designation is, there can be many different shapes and sizes of those types of things. So there could be industrial uses that generate additional noise, and that would have to be analyzed to ensure they comply with the City of Tumwater noise control regulations, which would specify how loud the noise can be to sensitive receivers nearby.
Is it possible to analyze those potential noise impacts at this time?
It is not, without knowing what the specific operations or configuration of construction would look like. So there's not enough detail to do a noise analysis.
And there's some testimony earlier in the hearing about cumulative impacts impacting the relative amounts of noise leaving the airport or generated by development on the airport. Are you able to comment on how total impact of noise would be accounted for down the road?
Well, if you're looking at the City of Tumwater noise control code, they have very explicit levels that cannot be exceeded from each of these developments. So a lot of that would be dependent on Tumwater approving the development and us, the advocate, showing that noise increase would not impact neighbors. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's just making sure that the cumulative impacts down the road are addressed in terms of all potential development. That's a concern raised by the applicants, or the appellants rather, and how that might be taken into account. Their concern is, if all 200 acres of industrial property are developed, how do we know that's not going to individually have lots of contributions to noise?
It's certainly a valid question. I think just like on the project specific level, trying to evaluate cumulative noise impacts require that you have some specificity as to what's generating the noise. So if you don't have firm plans in place or details of what the development looks like, you're not able to model the noise impacts and to actually assess either a project level or cumulative noise impacts.
I want to move to the water portion of the checklist. I'll share my screen here. Again, moving down to, this is Exhibit 3. Page 28, proposed measures to avoid or reduce increases discharge to water. Are you able to talk about what your review of the SEPA checklist included with respect to water?
Yes, again, there wasn't much to analyze. A stormwater analysis would be required by the City of Tumwater for any future development that will include looking at the size of buildings, the types of buildings, the types of contaminants that may be present for those uses. And then it would work with the City of Tumwater, who has its own surface water design manual, which is consistent with the Washington Stormwater Manual that Department of Ecology releases. Any of those projects would be required to go through a storm drainage analysis, but you need a lot more specificity in the plans to be able to do that analysis. And the types of things that would be required as an outcome of a stormwater analysis would be flow control, so that water isn't discharged from a site any faster than it is currently. It would take into consideration aquifer recharge, pollutants on site of proposed development. And so it would account for those things with BMP's best management practices. It would include treatment, stormwater treatment to remove contaminants, and then flow control, which can either be water that's held back and then metered out, or sometimes it's done through infiltration, controlled infiltration.
Based on your understanding of the master plan update, was it possible to analyze those impacts in a substantive way at this time?
No.
And why is that?
There's just not enough detail in the airport master plan to come to any meaningful conclusions. There would be wild speculation on runoff patterns and pollutant loading that we just do not know now. And we would need at least more firm understanding of what is proposed in those development areas.
And as an additional point, from your understanding, does the master plan update modify what can or cannot be developed in any of the development areas as compared to the underlying zoning imposed by the City of Tumwater?
It does not. The proposals for development areas in the master plan are consistent with City of Tumwater zoning.
Okay. I want to touch on endangered species. Again, we talked about that at some length with respect to the habitat conservation plan. And I can bring up the section of the checklist here. Scroll down to PDF page 31 of the checklist. Identify some animals, endangered species, protected species on the property. What did your review of the master plan update identify about potential impacts to animals?
The checklist identified that there's endangered or threatened species at the airport, and that those would have to be mitigated for before any development. And knowing that we're working on the HCP and that's going to be part of it, recognize that mitigation would be required to avoid significant impacts prior to any development.
And can you just touch on what is the form of that mitigation again?
The form of the mitigation really is an approved incidental take permit, which outlines, which would have to be consistent with an approved habitat conservation plan, which requires mitigation consideration for any development activities. So again, if just as a simple example, if 10 acres is used for development, then 10 acres elsewhere would need to be established as solid gopher habitat and then maintained in perpetuity.
And that mitigation plan will need to be approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
It would need to be approved by the Habitat Conservation Plan, which would outline the mitigation and the financial requirements, is approved. And then the agency undergoes Section 7 consultation. And then an incidental take permit could be issued at that time. And those together will require that the mitigation measures are implemented prior to any impact.
One more item that, I guess, two that appellants have raised are air and emissions. I'm going to move now to page 28 of the checklist. Addresses emissions to air. Setting aside the aviation forecast and ALP, did your review identify anything about passage of the master plan update that would result in significant impacts to air or emissions?
I did not. There was not enough detail to really analyze what the emissions impact would be.
And can you explain, is that for the same reasons that we were talking about already with respect to water?
Yes, we don't know what types of, for instance, commercial, aviation-related industrial development would take place. So it really depends on the type of work going on there, and based on the use of any particular development, it would have a significant impact potentially on emissions from that particular development. And it can be not only in the use and the activities that are going on, but it can be in the building design and layout and the building size and materials used. So there's a lot of information that would need to be analyzed to make a decent analysis of air emissions, including greenhouse gases.
And that in any substantive specific way can't be done at this time.
Correct.
So I just want to share a last document with you, which has been previously marked as Exhibit 2. Do you recognize this document?
I do. That's the mitigated determination of non-significance.
And I want to walk through what the mitigation measures were set out in this MDNS. If you could we'll start with animals. It looks like the second bullet. What are the requirements for any development on the port property under this MDNS?
The requirement is that that any development will have to comply with the HCP that is currently underway, or Section 7, which could be the FAA consulting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife directly on airport activities. So essentially, it just ensures that no development, if development moves forward under this airport master plan, that it would be compliant with the HCP and the Endangered Species Act in general.
Right. Noted down further, this third bullet on the second page addresses noise impacts. Can you talk briefly about what the mitigation requirements are with respect to noise?
Well, a noise analysis would need to be done depending on the type of development. And again, a lot of that is done under the Tumwater Municipal Code. There are certain ways that noisy operations can be insulated. That may be required per city code. Certain activities may not be allowed outside or outside of typical 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. daytime hours. So it would just require that good best management practices are used to minimize noise impacts. And it would require that they meet the decibel limits to neighboring receivers, so residential areas or commercial areas. Also, noise from any type of construction activities would also be subject to the Tumwater noise control code.
Okay. And there's a general requirement under this first bullet to comply with local and state regulatory requirements. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. It touches on water, the subsequent bullets. Here, are you able to discuss briefly on page 2 the requirements with respect to discharge to water? I can scroll in here.
Yeah, if you could. Yeah, water. Which one are you looking at here?
Well, there are several. One is a C-SWIP. There's another one, another condition addressing discharge to groundwater. And then there's another further down.
Yes, so the one bullet starts off with construction stormwater pollution prevention plans that will be required through the City of Tumwater or by the State Department of Ecology or both. And that will lay out best management practices to prevent any impacts during construction related to stormwater. And then in the long term, any of that development must meet federal, state, and local stormwater regulations, such as treatment or flow control, as previously mentioned.
And then just final bullet, which I believe is the third one, addressing emissions. This again highlights that there's not enough information at this time to specifically identify potential emissions.
Yes, that's correct. There's really no specific emission sources to evaluate. You have general zoning categories, which could mean a wide variety of things. And it does say case by case basis. So it could be on a project by project, or it could be at certain areas are developed. It's when that specificity comes forth that we would require that they would be required to address emissions from any potential development or operational changes.
Okay. I do not have any further questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Newman?
Yes, I don't think this will take that long. Shall I go?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll have some
Okay.
questions. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gilbertson. You did not conduct an analysis of the environmental impacts of the three different taxiway alternatives in Chapter 4, correct?
I looked at them all, but not a specific analysis for each one.
Okay, and the same question for the different runway alternatives, the two different alternatives? You did not conduct an environmental analysis of the impacts of those two?
Cursory of the preferred, but the other was a no action.
Okay. And you did not conduct an analysis of the environmental impacts of the different development alternatives in Chapter 4? There were, I think, 3 or 4 different alternatives.
There was no way to really compare them because there was not enough specificity within each of those development areas.
Okay, so the answer is no, you
No.
did not. Okay.
That's correct.
And you did not conduct an analysis of the environmental impacts of the preferred alternative? I'm assuming no.
Well, I reviewed the environmental checklist, which had a fairly thorough look at each of the environmental elements. And then that's why the mitigated determination was issued, because those things were considered, and it's recognized that those impacts need to be analyzed when there's enough information to do so meaningfully.
So your interpretation of the environmental checklist is that it contained a thorough look at environmental impacts of the preferred alternative?
Objection argumentative.
Well, it's cross-examination.
Maybe my tone?
Can you rephrase the question?
Well, I'm just curious, is your interpretation of the environmental checklist that it contained an analysis of a thorough analysis of environmental impacts of the preferred alternative?
Same objection.
You can answer if you understand the question, and if you don't, or you don't feel competent, then state that in your answer, please, Mr. Gilbertson.
I'll answer. I think that I would not say thorough. I said that I believe it covered most of the elements, and there was not enough detail to make a thorough evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you anticipate the HCP being done?
I am going to be speculating a little bit here, but I'm hopeful that the HCP may be done. It does need to undergo NEPA review, so that is a bit of a wild card. But my best guess would be probably 2 years from now.
Okay. And you are not a wildlife biologist, correct?
I'm not.
Okay, so you would defer to a wildlife biologist on issues concerning that topic?
To U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service biologist, yes.
Or any wildlife biologist who has education, experience, years of experience in that topic?
Certainly, I would listen to what they have to say.
Okay. You said that there were no parts of the airport that could be developed without impacting the pocket gopher. What is the basis for that answer? Where's the information that you're relying on for that answer?
Mainly the fact that the entire airport is designated as critical habitat. Certainly, there might be areas that are already paved where something could be put on top of the pavement, but it is all suitable habitat where it's not paved, and therefore any development activity in those areas is curtailed right now or prohibited.
Okay, so that's not based on a site evaluation that you or someone prepared specific for this project, for this preferred alternative decision?
No.
You are not an expert in noise impact analysis, am I right?
I was a noise specialist for WashDOT and did noise modeling and noise monitoring.
If you had a noise expert whose occupation and education is in noise impact analysis, would you consider their opinion worthwhile to listen to?
Generally speaking, yes.
And would you defer to them as having more experience than you do on the topic?
It depends. Yeah, possibly.
Okay. When you said, at one point you said, if the development is pursued, then a noise analysis would be completed. I just want to clarify, you meant, and you mentioned modeling, you mean case by case, project by project basis, correct?
It could be project by project or by area. It really depends on when the details are known for those specific development areas or proposals.
The analysis you referred to during your noise discussion, you mentioned something in 2004 that projected into 2013. Can you clarify what you didn't mention that when you talked about documents or information you reviewed? What was that?
That was an analysis done on noise by a consultant back in 2004, and it did noise modeling and developed contours based on 2004, 2008, and 2013.
Okay. And what was the project they were reviewing?
I don't know.
And did you actually review that analysis yourself?
Yes.
And did you review it prior to issuing the MDNS?
I did look at it prior to issuing the MDNS, and then I've looked at it since.
Did you? Okay. You are not a stormwater engineer, correct?
I'm not a stormwater engineer, but I've spent 15 years managing stormwater. compliance and permitting issues.
For site-specific projects?
For citywide. So for instance, we did the stormwater master plan and the stormwater manual for the city where I work.
Okay. And you are not a hydrogeologist, am I right?
I'm not.
And would you tend to defer to a hydrogeologist who has, say, 20+ years of experience in the topic on
I think-
issues?
It really depends on what they're saying, but in general, yes, I would have confidence that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been involved in the preparation of an environmental impact statement for a non-project action?
No. I've
Have
been
you ever-
involved with SEPA
Yeah.
checklists, but not an EIS.
Have you ever seen an EIS for a non-project action?
I have, and I'm trying to place it, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Okay, and would you be surprised if I told you that agencies prepare environmental impact statements that assess impacts of general plans without having any site-specific development proposals in place?
I would not be surprised by that.
Okay, in your MD&S, you say there's a condition, when we had that up on the screen regarding discharge, and that condition, I just want to make it clear, am I right that it confirms that the port cannot infiltrate stormwater related to activities that involve hazardous or toxic materials?
That's correct.
Okay, I have no more questions.
Mr. Pierce, right, I have some questions, but would you prefer to, I assume you would, to have it some redirected?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, these may sound ill-informed, Mr. Gilbertson, but let me go through my notes.
Okay.
This question does not assume that you were required to do this, but did you, in preparing the checklist, I assume you were the primary author of the checklist, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in doing that, did you, and again, this question does not assume that you were obligated legally to do this. Did you seek any advice or comments from any local government or federal state agency before you finalized the checklist?
I did, both the City of Tumwater Planning Department and the SEPA helpline from the Department of Ecology.
Okay, you may have testified to that and I missed it, so.
I did not. Thank you.
Okay. Along that line, let me make a note here. And again, this may be an exhibit, so the lawyers may jump in here, but the document I actually have in front of me that the appeals from is your MD&S dated February 26, 2025. And besides giving an appeal date in there, and this is customary, it says that comments may be received by the public by February 20, 2025. Did you how many comments do you recall receiving, just generally, ballpark figure? And I may have them in the record if the attorneys tell me that I have the comments.
You do.
I do. Which exhibit number are they?
Exhibit, I believe it's exhibit 4.
It's exhibit 4.
And
Okay,
there are
thanks.
some hyperlinks that may or may not work.
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
No, thank you. I won't ask my question then. Thank you very much. I'll just look at that.
It was between 100 and 150 comments received.
I thought I saw that. So I do have that in the record. Give me one moment here. I know I saw them. I shouldn't have even broached the question. I'm just going to review the comments. Give me a moment. Um, is it your understanding, and you won't be the issuing agency, so I'm not holding to this, that if and when the HCP is agreed on by the parties preparing it and submit it for approval under the ESA, that it will then cover for the subjects of the species included in it, not only activities on the site based on current build out, but future activities based on possibly future build out.
Yes, that is the intent.
I didn't phrase it very well, but I think I got the answer. Okay. It's not meant to get approval simply as a kind of a snapshot at the present time, but going forward.
That is correct. It's not mitigation vehicle for current layout or activities. It is for future activities.
Okay. And I know you're not a wildlife expert, neither am I, but I've looked at parts of the draft HCP, and my understanding is, in reading that the I hope I word this appropriately, is that the Olympia pocket gopher, and the streaked horned lark have similar tendencies or proclivities for flatlands, non-treat areas that they're at the port, but they do not necessarily coexist together as generally. They may on this site, but one of them is not necessary for the well-being of the other. They just, it's almost, I wouldn't say accidental, but they simply utilize the same type of habitat, and in this case, it's the bush prairie area. Is that a fair statement? It's kind of a long statement, but
that's my understanding as well, sir.
okay. Do you know, and I can check it, whether the Tumwater noise ordinance you testified had quote very explicit levels that cannot be exceeded? Do you know if there are variance provisions in that ordinance? It's a matter of legal interpretation, but I can look.
There are some for certain emergency activities, certain construction activities done during daytime hours, but there's also a penalty for noise generated in the evening hours as well. So it does have some variances or exceptions, and it does also tighten the noise level requirements for evening type activities.
Thank you. And then I just have, go ahead.
I just said you're welcome.
I've got to phrase this appropriately, and I'll characterize your statements, and I'm not as saying that with regard to level of environmental review or identifying environmental issues at the checklist level or the stage or MD&S stage, that there simply was not enough information, and future development plans were speculative to the point that you did not believe you could identify meaningful impacts. Is that correct at this time?
That is correct, that the detail was not there to make adequate, meaningful evaluations at this time. And certainly it's speculative. These development areas are just that, areas that could be developed to meet FAA standards. And as well, there, as we talked about with the 2013 Airport Master Plan, it may be many, many, many years until any of those development activities are done. But the main element was that there's not a specificity within the Airport Master Plan that would facilitate a meaningful analysis.
And let me ask you, putting aside any later action by the FAA that might require NEPA review with regard to the State Environmental Policy Act, had you given any thought then to at what later stage or decision point a more detailed environmental analysis or a supplemental check or a checklist with more specificity would be required?
Yes, certainly.
Or I should say might be required.
Certainly, we would require an assessment of whether SEPA is required for any project moving forward. And as well, if there are proposals for commercial service, for instance, we would initiate an in-depth environmental review of that, both through NEPA and SEPA.
So just for example, could that involve construction or occupancy permits by the City of Tumwater?
Yes, the City of Tumwater would be the permitting agency for many of those items, including stormwater and occupancy, traffic analysis, things like that. And that would be, they would be required to permit any of those projects, and they will require SEPA.
And did you consider that that might also apply to a CSWPP approval or some other waste discharge permit? Approval is the wrong term, but approval by the Department of Ecology regarding releasing waters, stormwaters from the site, that might be a future permit or approval periods at which more definite environmental review might be required?
Absolutely, yes. That will be required both from the state and the city. The construction stormwater pollution prevention plan is required by the City of Tumwater and by the Department of Ecology if a construction stormwater permit is sought, which most of these developments would require both the construction stormwater general permit and a stormwater analysis through the City of Tumwater.
Are there other state or municipal approval processes in the future that you considered would be necessary for some of the development activities discussed in the preferred alternative, and that would trigger additional SEPA review? Am I missing some?
Boy, try to gather them all, but certainly we'd have to show at the city level that we're in compliance with shoreline rules, stormwater rules, noise rules. Civil construction permit would be required most likely for any of these. There's definitely further permits and environmental review required for any actions to be implemented from the airport master plan.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Gilbertson. I think I understand your testimony and the question and the answers to the attorneys. Do either of the
You're welcome.
either Mr. Pierce Wright or Ms. Newman want any follow-up questions?
I have just a couple follow-up questions.
Go ahead.
You were asked earlier about whether you're a wildlife biologist, Shawn. In the context of consulting on the HCP, is the Port and the City of Tumwater working with wildlife biologists?
Yes.
And as part of developing the HCP, was there a survey done of what parts of the airport property are impacted or habitat to listed species?
Yes.
And that analysis informed your own analysis with respect to the airport master plan?
It did.
You were asked earlier about whether you drafted the SEPA checklist, I think, as opposed to the MDNS. Who drafted the SEPA checklist?
Oh, if I said that I drafted the SEPA checklist, that was incorrect. Chris Paolini drafted the SEPA checklist. He did have a couple of questions for me, and he also, I believe, involved our consultant to review the SEPA checklist.
And
By
then
the way,
you,
thank you for asking that, because I know Mr. Paolini did testify to that. And then my question, I thought your answer was you were involved. So thanks for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
and then you, Shawn, drafted the MDNS
I did.
in consultation with, you mentioned ecology and the City of Tumwater.
Correct.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Newman?
I don't have any.
Well, Mr. Gilbertson, I thought you would take longer. Not you would take longer, but the lawyers would take longer with you. Does the port have any other witness?
We do not.
And Ms. Newman, you have one more witness, right?
For Friday, the 25th.
So, Mr. Gilbertson, I think you're done testifying. You can stay in the meeting.
Thank
In
you.
that case, and there's going to be written closing arguments. I'll tell you what I hope to do between now and the 25th. There are number one, there are a number of exhibits objected to that I have not either admitted or ruled on. There are two I specifically said I was not admitting at this stage, but I don't think I've ruled on the other objections. I'm going to try reviewing all those. Certainly sometime before July 25th. If I let me ask the lawyers, if I don't know how to do this. If I came to a decision about where I was leaning on admitting or not admitting those, would you rather I just sprung that on you on the 25th or sent out some sort of communication in adequate time before the 25th? I've never had this situation, so I wouldn't be ruling in a public meeting. So maybe I should wait till the 25th.
I think that just because it's hard to answer, I don't know where, but it would be
Right.
nice to have an opportunity to talk about it.
I'll review all them, because at the end of the test, let me withdraw my question. At the end of the testimony, then we will, before we conclude, I want to review the exhibit list to make with both sides to make sure that I've covered the ones for which there were objections and whether I need to admit them at that time or should admit them. So let's just wait to the 25th to do that. Is there any other procedural matter we should cover before we adjourn today?
I think Zach and I have the same one, probably. Do you
Go
want to
ahead.
go
Go ahead,
ahead?
Claudia.
Oh, I just wanted to know if we could get the audio tapes of these last couple days somehow from the port.
I'll work on getting that to you.
Okay.
And
know-
will you post them publicly on the port's webpage where you posted the link for this so that members of the public can listen to the public hearing?
I don't know the answer to that.
But we'd request that.
Yeah, you're requesting, I'm not sure it's required. I don't know that it's required, but if the port doesn't have an objection to it and can do it, that would be fine. I've never had that. Anyway, I would probably be benefited from accessing those also during the interim.
And may I follow up on that? I think I heard the port say or there was a notice in this Teams meeting that AI transcript was being generated. We'd like to see the transcript too, understanding it's not an official port transcriptionist transcript, but it's a lot more efficient to read text than fast forward through audio.
Yeah, I don't know the status of that. I will look into it and get back to you.
Thank you.
I mean, normally that wouldn't occur, I suppose, till the end of the hearing, but so I leave that to the good graces and the port, whether the port is able to do that or wants to do that. Those are good points. Is there anything else we should cover?
Written closing argument. I guess we don't need to set a deadline now, but I'm just curious about turnaround time and page limits.
No, it's a very good question. I have to tell you folks, I didn't have an anxiety attack, but in the past few days, I did have a flashback about if I was in either of your positions. I would have had an anxiety period about drafting such a document with this record. So what do you think on, I don't necessarily want to impose a limit. If you think it's an extensive record and there's a lot to refer to. And so if you believe you need a certain number of pages, I'm willing to not impose a limit, but how do you feel about that? But on the other hand, I don't want you to feel you have to write, 80 or 90 pages of a closing.
I tend to try to write as short a brief as possible, just recognizing that any person reading a brief appreciates someone being concise and to the point. I can't promise it would be short, but I don't typically need someone to put a page limit on mine because I like to keep them short I think it's a better product.
I think a page limit would be helpful, like 20 maybe.
You think it would be helpful?
Yeah.
And clearly the closings will make reference to extensive references, I assume, to exhibits.
I do think that 20 would be too short, despite my statement about closing. That is way too short. I meant I wasn't going to be submitting an 80 or 90 page, but we are prejudiced by a page limit because our arguments tend to require a need to unpack very complicated information and issues, and we have the burden of proof in this case. And I really don't want to submit a long brief, but I also think 20 pages is way too short.
I think the federal rules allow a 24-page MSJ. I don't know, something like that seems appropriate.
This is a trial brief, not a.
I think the
MSJ.
limits are similar.
And it's also not federal court, and it's a.
Okay.
I guess I'll say my concern is that appellants' briefing materials previously were 30 pages of briefing plus dozens of pages of declarations, all incorporating dozens of pages of exhibits, which is quite a lot.
We were defending our standing, and we have 8 appellants. And we actually, I thought, did an incredibly good job of shortening our standing argument in the brief.
You've all done a great job. So I'm assuming the other than the motion briefs and the declarations, that these are not going to include attachments of a lot of exhibits and declarations. We have an extensive record, and I'm sure both parties are going to refer to exhibits in the record. So I'm willing to impose a limit of, let's say, 30 pages. But if you think that's not sufficient, possibly you could communicate. Well, we'll decide this on the 25th, because let me ask you this: how much time? Again, I'm very happy I'm not in the position of either party on this. How much time after the last hearing on the 25th do you think would be reasonable to for a limit on you submitting written closing arguments?
If I could ask, can we set that on the 25th? The nature of Zach and my practice is that things happen because it's land use. We literally will get a decision and suddenly we have a trial in 14 days. I mean, it's our schedules change dramatically.
I understand. We can wait till we can wait till the 25th, and I don't have to impose a limit now. I'll wait till the 25th. I'll think through.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, I think all the lawyers have been excellent. You all are pretty experienced, or are experienced, and you want enough pages to give me the right arguments and point to the right exhibits, but not enough pages that my mind wanders as I'm reading it. So let's wait till the 25th. I don't want to overthank everyone, but the attorneys have been very civil and have proceeded, I think, expeditiously with no unnecessary objections. And so I want to thank you for that. Is there any other procedural matter we should discuss now, or we'll just see each other on the 25th, either in person or virtually? Probably virtually, I guess.
Do we have a time for the 25th?
Well, that's a good point. Ms. Newman, do you know how long Mr. Matthew would take?
Oh, I do not, but I think 9:30 should be safe again. I certainly, yeah.
Yeah, I was guessing maybe because I did water stuff that it might be 30 minutes, but it might be longer.
Yeah, I could say I doubt it would be longer than an hour. I think it'd be between 30 minutes and an hour.
My assumption then is that we would be, if we set it at 9:30 on the 25th, that we would be done by noon. That's my assumption.
That would be a good goal. Reasonable.
Okay. Well, let's do that. We'll set it for 9:30 a.m. on the 25th. Do I have the right date? Yes. Anything else? I want to thank you all. I want to thank the people that were shown on my screen as attending or listening, also for your patience. So either set of attorneys, do you have any other comment at this point?
Nothing from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seriously, thank you all. Okay, enjoy.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
What's that? Enjoy Thursday and Friday to the extent you can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you. Bye-bye.